It was a warm afternoon, the kind of day where the sun hung low, casting a golden glow over the busy streets. Lily, just 6 years old, was carefully picking up bits of litter along the sidewalk. With a small, determined frown on her face, she bent down despite the difficulty of her movements. Her legs were weaker than most kids, a result of her cerebral palsy. But her spirit, that was as strong as steel. She might have been small, and her movements might have been slower, but Lily had a mission. She was on a quest to clean up her neighborhood, one piece of trash at a time, believing that if everyone did their part, the world could be a little bit brighter. However, her peaceful task was about to be interrupted. A loud roar of engines signaled the arrival of a group of bikers speeding down the street, their motorcycles tearing through the air. At first, they zoomed past without a second thought, but as they slowed down, the laughter started, loud, obnoxious, and mocking. One of the bikers, a tall man with tattoos snaking up his arms, noticed Lily. He slowed to a stop right beside her, eyeing the little girl as she bent down to grab a piece of litter. His smirk was wide, full of arrogance. "Hey, little girl," he jeered. "What are you doing, picking up trash like some kind of superhero?" Lily didn't look up. She continued her task, trying to ignore the rude comment. But that only encouraged the biker. He nudged his bike closer to her, blocking her path. The tension grew in the air as more bikers gathered around, laughing and egging each other on. They began to circle her like vultures, each comment more hurtful than the last. One biker even threw a can toward her, hitting the ground just inches from her face. But what happened next would change everything. From across the street, two figures appeared, Keanu Reeves and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. They were out for a casual stroll, just enjoying the day, when they noticed the scene unfolding. Their expressions went from calm to concern as they saw Lily surrounded by the group of bikers. Keanu's face tightened. The Rock's muscles tensed. They didn't know what was going on yet, but they could tell this wasn't right. And that was all they needed to know. Before the bikers could say anything more, Keanu and The Rock made their move. Would they intervene? Would they step in to help a young girl caught in the middle of this mess? Before we go any further, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next in this jaw-dropping moment. Lily had always been different, but not in the way most people would think. Sure, she had cerebral palsy, a condition that affected her muscles and coordination, making everyday activities much harder. But her difference wasn't just in the way she walked or moved. It was in the way she saw the world, and the way she decided to make a difference, no matter how small it seemed. Born to a single mother, Lily's life was full of love, but also challenges. Her mom, Sarah, worked 2 jobs to make ends meet. But Lily's world was never one of sadness or self-pity. Despite her difficulties, Lily had a heart full of hope. Her mother taught her to be strong, to face each day with a smile, and to always do what she could to help others. While most kids her age played with toys or watched cartoons, Lily was often found in their neighborhood, picking up litter. She believed that if everyone just did one small thing to help, the world could be a cleaner, kinder place. Lily never liked to sit idly by. Even with her condition, she saw beauty in action and believed in the power of small, everyday deeds. Keanu Reeves and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, 2 of the most beloved figures in Hollywood, were far from the celebrities people saw on screen. Off camera, both men were known for their deep humility, generosity, and commitment to making the world a better place. Keanu Reeves, often hailed as the nicest guy in Hollywood, was a man who kept his life private, but constantly spread kindness wherever he went. He'd been through his own share of heartache and struggle, but it never hardened him. Instead, he used those experiences to empathize with others. He didn't just play the hero in movies, he was one in real life too. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, on the other hand, was larger than life, both in his career and his heart. The former wrestler-turned-movie star had a reputation for being a force of nature on screen, but off-screen, he was known for his relentless positivity and his determination to help others. He believed that true strength wasn't about physical power, but about lifting others up when they were down. Both Keanu and The Rock had walked the streets of Los Angeles many times, enjoying the simple pleasures of a stroll. Neither expected to find themselves in a situation like this, one where a small, brave girl was being harassed by a group of bullies. As they walked, they caught sight of Lily, and instinctively both men knew they couldn't just keep walking. Something about seeing a young girl, vulnerable and alone, being taunted and mocked, struck a deep chord with them. This wasn't just about a biker picking on a little girl. This was about standing up for what was right, and if there was one thing Keanu and The Rock could agree on, it was that silence in the face of bullying was never an option. And so, the wheels of action began to turn. What would these two stars do next? Would they take a stand and make a difference? Would they prove that even in the toughest of situations, kindness and courage could overcome hatred and fear? Keep watching, because trust me, things are about to get really intense. The tension in the air was palpable. The bikers were no longer laughing. Their confidence was wavering, and their smiles had all but disappeared. They exchanged glances, weighing the situation, unsure of how to handle the unexpected confrontation. Keanu and The Rock weren't backing down, and the group of bikers suddenly found themselves out of their comfort zone. This wasn't a street they could control. The lanky biker who had started the trouble seemed to be the most confrontational, his pride on the line. His eyes flickered from Keanu to The Rock, and then back to Lily, who was still quietly picking up trash on the ground. The contrast between the young girl's vulnerability and the towering figures of the two Hollywood stars made the situation feel even more surreal. The bikers might have been intimidating in their own right, but Keanu and The Rock weren't your average people. They were men who, despite the fame and fortune, knew the power of standing up for what's right no matter the odds. "Let's go," the biker with the scar on his cheek muttered, signaling to the rest of the group. But there was hesitation in his voice, and it wasn't as firm as it should have been. He didn't want to back down, but he also knew that the situation was slipping from his control. His buddies were beginning to show uncertainty, glancing nervously at The Rock and Keanu. Just as things seemed to be at a boiling point, Lily's soft voice cut through the tension like a blade. "It's okay," she said, looking up from the ground, her eyes meeting the group of bikers. Her words were quiet but full of strength. "I don't need you to fight for me." The bikers were momentarily taken aback. They'd expected fear, anger, or even tears from her, but instead, they were met with the most unexpected thing: calm, unshakable resolve. Her innocent words rang louder than any insult they could have hurled her way. Keanu and The Rock exchanged a quick glance, both struck by Lily's bravery. They knew in that moment that they weren't just defending a little girl. They were standing alongside someone who had more courage than anyone had given her credit for. But the bikers weren't convinced. The scar-faced man took a step toward Lily, his face twisted in a mix of frustration and defiance. "This isn't over," he muttered, his voice low, filled with venom. But before he could say anything more, The Rock took a step forward, his voice booming like thunder. "It is over," he declared. "You have two choices here. You walk away, or you keep pushing, and we'll make sure the next decision is yours to regret." The bikers hesitated, realizing that they were at a crossroads. One wrong move, and this could escalate into something far worse. They could see the warning in The Rock's eyes, and they didn't need any more persuasion. One by one, they climbed back onto their bikes. The lanky biker with the scruffy beard spat on the ground, his pride wounded, but his desire for a fight waning. Without another word, the group of bikers revved their engines and sped off down the street, leaving Lily, Keanu, and The Rock standing in the middle of the now empty sidewalk. For a moment, everything felt still. The quiet that followed the storm was almost deafening. Lily stood up, dusting off her knees, and turned to face Keanu and The Rock, who were both watching her with admiration. "Thank you," she said, her voice quiet but filled with gratitude. "I didn't want to make them angry, but I didn't want to stop either." Keanu knelt down to her level, smiling warmly. "You didn't stop, Lily. You stood your ground. That's more than most adults could do." The Rock, with a grin on his face, added, "You're a tough one, kid. You've got heart. You know, I think you just might be the real superhero here." Lily's face lit up with a proud smile, and for the first time in what felt like forever, she wasn't just the little girl with cerebral palsy. She was the one who had faced down a group of bullies, Not with anger or fear, but with the quiet strength that only someone like her could possess. Keanu and the Rock's presence had been the tipping point, yes, but it was Lily's bravery that had ultimately won the day. As the two Hollywood stars stood up, ready to continue their walk, they couldn't help but feel that in this moment, they had witnessed something extraordinary. "I think she just showed us what it really means to be strong," Keanu said quietly, his voice filled with respect. The Rock nodded, his eyes lingering on Lily for a moment longer. "You're right. We may be big, but she's got something even more powerful." And as they began walking away, the world around them seemed a little brighter, a little kinder, because of the courage of one small girl who refused to be bullied. But what would happen next? Would Lily's act of courage inspire others, or would the bullies return to test her again? The journey wasn't over yet, and the stakes were higher than ever. Stay tuned. The real lesson is about to unfold, and it's one that will change everything. The quiet hum of the street returned, but the weight of what had just transpired lingered. Lily stood there watching Keanu and the Rock walk away, the rush of emotions from the confrontation finally catching up to her. Her heart was racing, not from fear, but from a sense of accomplishment. She hadn't backed down. She hadn't let the bullies win. But even as the bikers disappeared down the street, Lily's mind kept returning to one thought. What if they come back? She knew the world wasn't always kind. She knew that people sometimes picked on others because they were different or weaker. Her condition had made her an easy target in the past, but today for the first time she had felt truly strong. Not because of her body, but because of the strength in her spirit. As Keanu and the Rock disappeared around the corner, Lily felt a sudden wave of emotion crash over her. She had been brave, yes, but part of her still wanted to retreat into the safety of her mother's arms. She had hoped the confrontation was over, but deep down she knew that the bullies weren't likely to just forget about her. They weren't going to stop because of a few kind words or a stare down from a couple of movie stars. Her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of footsteps. She turned, startled, and saw her mother, Sarah, walking toward her. Sarah's face was filled with concern, but when she saw her daughter standing tall in the middle of the street, there was an immediate shift in her expression. "Lily?" Sarah's voice was soft, but it carried the weight of a mother's worry. She rushed over, kneeling beside her daughter. "What happened? Are you okay?" Lily nodded, trying to hold back the flood of emotions that were rising within her. "I'm fine, Mum," she whispered. I just stood up for myself." Sarah's eyes softened, and without saying another word, she enveloped her daughter in a warm, protective hug. For a moment they both stood there, the world around them disappearing as mother and daughter shared a quiet connection. It was then that Lily looked past her mother, her gaze falling on something that made her heart skip a beat. Keanu and the Rock were walking back toward them. The two men paused just a few steps away, standing silently, watching the reunion with a respectful distance. Sarah pulled back from the hug, wiping her eyes. "Oh my gosh," she said, surprised. "I didn't realize you two were still here." Keanu smiled, his presence calm and reassuring. "We just wanted to make sure everything was all right," he said quietly. "We saw how brave your daughter was today. She's something special." The Rock gave a nod of agreement. "Yeah, she's got heart, and that's something you can't fake." Lily's face lit up. "You're not mad at me for not backing down, are you?" Keanu chuckled softly. "Mad? We're proud of you. What you did today. That was the kind of courage the world needs more of." The Rock bent down to her level, his smile warm and full of genuine admiration. "You handled that like a champ. You didn't let them bully you, you taught them something today." Lily, overwhelmed by the kindness and validation, finally let the tears fall. She wasn't ashamed of her tears, not anymore. She had faced something she never thought she could, and had come out stronger on the other side. She wiped her face, trying to compose herself. I just didn't want to let them hurt me, or anyone else," she said softly. Sarah, her voice thick with emotion, added, "And you didn't. You showed us all what it means to have strength." Keanu stepped forward again. "It's more than just strength, Lily. It's resilience, and you've got it in spades. That's something most people can't learn. You've already got it." The Rock stood up and stretched, giving Lily one last grin. "You know, if you ever want to kick some more butts with us, just say the word." Lily's smile was the brightest thing in the street, her small frame standing tall with the pride of someone who had not just survived a fight, but had won it. Not with fists or anger, but with the kind of quiet strength that commanded respect. As Keanu and the Rock began to walk away once again, Sarah placed her arm around Lily's shoulders, guiding her back toward their home. The city around them felt different now. For Lily, the world no longer seemed like a place full of bullies and strangers. It was a place where kindness could still win, where a little girl could stand up for herself and be heard. And maybe, just maybe, it was a place where, when people like Keanu and The Rock walked into the picture, things could change for the better. But just as they were about to turn the corner, Lily turned to look back at the empty street. She wasn't worried anymore. She had faced the storm, and the storm had passed. She would stand strong, no matter what, and that was a lesson she would carry with her for the rest of her life. But the story wasn't over yet. The moment might have passed, but the impact of what had happened would echo long after. How would the world respond to the bravery of one small girl? Would her story inspire others to stand up for themselves too? And, most importantly, would the bikers ever dare to come back? Stay tuned, because the story of courage, kindness, and strength is far from over. The next few days passed by quickly for Lily and her mother, Sarah. The streets seemed quieter, and the air felt a little easier to breathe. It was as if the world had seen what happened and for once recognized that even the smallest of people could make a big impact. For Lily, though, things weren't exactly the same. She had faced something that in many ways felt bigger than she was, and she had come out on the other side stronger. But even in the calm, there was a lingering sense of curiosity, a question that refused to let go. What happens next? Lily couldn't stop thinking about those bikers. Despite how much confidence she had gained from standing up for herself, there was still a tiny seed of fear that lingered. What if they came back? What if things didn't stay as calm as they were now? One afternoon, as she and Sarah sat on the porch enjoying the soft breeze, Lily broke the silence. "Mom," she started quietly, "what if they come back?" Sarah turned to look at her daughter, her expression soft but understanding. "Who?" "The bikers," Lily said, her voice wavering slightly. "What if they try to hurt me again?" Sarah took a deep breath and placed a gentle hand on Lily's shoulder. "I know you're scared, sweetheart, and it's okay to be, but you showed them something they didn't expect. You showed them your strength." Lily nodded slowly, but doubt lingered in her eyes. "What if they don't care? What if I can't stop them next time?" Sarah smiled, her eyes filled with love and certainty. "Lily, you can stop them. You've already shown the world that you don't back down when it matters. You taught those bikers a lesson they'll never forget." Just as Sarah finished speaking, a car rolled slowly down the street. It was an old, familiar car, the kind you never expect to see again, but it always seems to show up when you need it most. Keanu and The Rock. Lily's heart skipped a beat as they pulled up and parked by the curb. They had come back. "Hey there, kiddo," The Rock called out as he stepped out of the car, giving her a wink. "You doing okay?" Lily's face lit up with a mix of surprise and joy. "You came back." Keanu stepped out behind him, his calm, thoughtful demeanor as steady as ever. "We wanted to check in," he said with a warm smile. "See how you were holding up after everything that happened." Lily's worry from earlier melted away. She felt a sense of comfort knowing that they hadn't just been passing by. They had come back because they cared. "We've been talking," The Rock said, looking down at Lily with a serious yet friendly expression. "And we wanted to tell you something. What you did, standing up to those bullies, it was more than just bravery. It was leadership." Lily blinked, taken aback. "Leadership? I just didn't want them to hurt me." Keanu nodded thoughtfully. "Exactly. But by standing up for yourself, you showed others that it's okay to stand tall. It's okay to fight for what's right. You've set an example for everyone who was watching, and I promise you, Lily, that's something powerful." The Rock crouched down beside her. "You've already inspired us, and I'm sure you've inspired a whole lot of other people too." For the first time, Lily felt like she truly understood what they meant. She hadn't just survived that moment with the bikers. She had made an impact. People had seen her strength, and that mattered more than anything. "I didn't think I could be brave," Lily whispered, her voice full of wonder. "But now I know I can." Keanu and The Rock exchanged a glance, and Keanu spoke again, his tone more personal this time. "Lily, you don't have to be big or strong in the traditional way to be brave. The kind of courage you have, that's the kind that changes lives, and you've already done that." Sarah, who had been quietly watching the exchange, wiped away a tear as she hugged her daughter. "You've made me so proud, Lily," she said softly. "You've made us all proud." As they stood there, the afternoon sun began to dip lower, casting a warm glow over the street. It was a peaceful moment, but one full of meaning. This was no ordinary day. This was a day where Lily realized that the fight she had faced wasn't just for her. It was for anyone who had ever felt small, powerless, or alone, and in that moment Lily knew that she had won, not just by standing up to the bullies, but by standing up for herself and others. But there was still something else she needed. "To say thank you," she said, looking up at Keanu and The Rock, "for helping me, for showing me that it's okay to be scared, but it's also okay to stand up." The Rock smiled, standing up and offering her a fist bump. "Anytime, kid, anytime." Keanu placed a hand on her shoulder, giving her a nod of approval. "You're one of the bravest people I know, Lily. Don't ever forget that." As they got back into the car and drove off, Lily stood there with her mother, watching the vehicle disappear around the corner. The world felt different now, more hopeful, more certain. She had learned that strength wasn't about size or appearance. It was about heart. And Lily had more heart than she could have ever imagined, and as the evening sun sank lower, Sarah wrapped her arm around Lily and whispered, "No matter what happens next, you've already made the world a better place." It was a lesson that would stay with Lily forever, that courage, kindness, and the will to stand up for what's right could create change. The journey wasn't over, but Lily knew that she was ready for whatever came next. As the days rolled on, the echoes of that afternoon began to settle into the lives of Lily, Sarah, Keanu, and The Rock. The bikers had not returned, and there was a quiet peace that filled Lily's heart. But even with the calm, a quiet curiosity stirred within her. How far had her story traveled? How many people had been impacted by her act of courage? Lily's story wasn't just one of standing up to bullies. It had become a symbol, a reminder that anyone, no matter how small, could make a stand. And as she reflected on the events of the past week, she realized something. Her bravery wasn't a one-time thing. It was a choice she could make every day. One afternoon, as she and Sarah sat in their living room, a knock at the door broke the peaceful silence. Sarah stood and walked toward it, opening the door to find a small crowd of people gathered outside, holding signs. At first, Lily was confused, unsure of who they were, but as she peered out the window, she saw something that made her heart swell. On one of the signs, in big, bold letters, it read, "Lily, you're our hero." Lily's breath caught in her chest. These weren't just strangers. They were neighbors, friends, and people from the community. All of them had come together to thank her for what she had done, to show their support, and to let her know that her courage had inspired more than just her family. Sarah stepped outside, looking at the group, and then back at Lily, whose eyes were wide with surprise. "Mum," Lily whispered, "why are they here?" "They're here for you," Sarah said, her voice filled with pride. "Because you've made a difference." The crowd cheered, and the signs were waved proudly in the air. The Rock and Keanu had spread the word about Lily's bravery, and it had rippled through the community like a wave of kindness and strength. People had been inspired by her, not just because she had stood up to the bullies, but because she had done it in a way that showed the world that no one is too small to make a stand. Lily's heart raced. She had never imagined that her quiet act of defiance could make such an impact. As she stepped outside, the crowd went silent, and all eyes turned to her. For a moment, she felt overwhelmed by the attention, but then a voice broke through her thoughts. "Hey, Lily!" It was a neighbor from down the street. "You showed us all what real courage looks like. We're proud of you." Another voice shouted, "You're our superhero, Lily." Lily couldn't help but smile. She had never felt so seen, so understood, and most of all, so supported. It wasn't just the bikers she had defeated. It was the idea of fear itself. It was showing everyone that standing up for what's right could make a difference. It was proof that even in the face of something scary, one person could shift the balance. Keanu and The Rock had made sure Lily knew she was a hero, but this was something more. The community, the people around her, were now rallying around her. They were acknowledging her strength, and in that moment, Lily knew she wasn't alone. She stood there absorbing the warmth of the support, and then, her voice clear and steady, she spoke to the crowd. "Thank you. I never thought I could be brave, but now I know that I don't have to do it alone. We can all be brave together. I want you to remember this. If I can do it, so can you. Don't let anyone tell you that you can't stand up for what's right." The crowd erupted in cheers, and the applause echoed down the street. It wasn't just for Lily anymore. It was for every person who had ever felt small, who had ever been afraid. It was for everyone who needed a reminder that courage wasn't about being fearless. It was about standing up even when you were scared. As the crowd dispersed, and Lily returned to the comfort of her home, she looked up at her mother, who stood by her side watching the world she had helped create. "You did it," Sarah whispered, her voice full of emotion. "You really did it." Lily smiled softly, her heart full. "I didn't do it alone, Mum. We all did." And as the sun set that evening, Lily knew that this was just the beginning. This was the start of a movement, a wave of kindness and courage that would continue to spread. And from that day on, Lily would never doubt that the smallest voice could make the biggest difference. As Lily lay in bed that night, her mind swirled with possibilities. Maybe one day she'd help even more people, maybe even teach others how to find their own courage. The journey wasn't over, and now more than ever, Lily was ready for whatever came next. So what about you? What would you do if you were in Lily's shoes? Would you stand up for yourself? For someone else? The lesson here is clear. Courage is a choice, and sometimes the bravest thing you can do is to believe in yourself. We want to know, how have you shown courage in your life? Share your thoughts and stories with us in the comments below. And if you were inspired by Lily's journey, don't forget to share this story with your friends and family. Together, we can all make a difference. It had been a few weeks since that unforgettable day when Lily stood up to the bullies. The street outside her house had returned to its usual quiet rhythm, but for Lily, nothing felt quite the same. Everywhere she went, people smiled at her a little more warmly, held open doors a little longer, and gave her the kind of looks that said, "You've done something special." It wasn't just her family and neighbors who had been affected by her courage, it was everyone. Lily had become more than just a little girl who had faced down a group of bullies. She had become a symbol of hope and strength, showing the world that even the smallest person could create a ripple that spread far and wide. One afternoon, as Lily was walking with Sarah to the local park, she noticed something unusual. A group of children stood together by the swings, chatting excitedly. As they saw Lily approaching, they fell silent, and then, one by one, they stepped forward. A little boy no older than Lily spoke up first, his voice shy but filled with admiration. "Lily, we saw what you did. You were really brave, and we wanted to say, we think you're a hero." Lily blinked, surprised by the attention, but her heart swelled with a mixture of pride and humility. "Thanks," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't do it alone. I had a lot of help." One of the girls, her eyes wide with excitement, added, "We saw you standing up to those bikers, and we've been talking about it. You inspired us to stand up for each other." Another boy nodded, his face serious. "Yeah, we've been trying to stop the bullies at school. It's not easy, but we're doing it because of you." Lily smiled, her face lighting up. This was what she had hoped for all along. The courage she had summoned in herself was now being passed along to others, just like a flame that had caught hold and was spreading further than she could have imagined. "You guys are the real heroes," she said earnestly, her voice full of sincerity. "It's all of us together. That's what makes us strong." As the children gathered around her, Sarah watched from a distance, her heart swelling with pride. This moment was the culmination of everything Lily had learned, everything Sarah had taught her. It was proof that kindness, bravery, and strength could multiply, that one person's act of courage could spark a movement. The next day, Lily and her mother received a surprising message. A local news station had caught wind of her story and wanted to interview her. Sarah, hesitant at first, agreed, knowing that this would give Lily the opportunity to share her message of courage with an even larger audience. On the day of the interview, Lily stood nervously in front of the camera, her hands clasped tightly together. But as soon as she looked up and saw the reporter's friendly face, a sense of calm washed over her. This wasn't about her anymore. It wasn't about the bullies or even the famous movie stars who had helped her. This was about something bigger. The reporter, a woman with kind eyes, began, "Lily, you've become a role model to so many people. How does that make you feel?" Lily paused for a moment, taking a deep breath before responding. "I feel proud, but I didn't do it alone. There are so many people who helped me. My mom, my friends, even Keanu and The Rock. They all showed me that it's okay to be scared, but you can still stand up for what's right." The reporter smiled, clearly moved by Lily's words. "That's an incredible message. What advice do you have for other kids who might be feeling afraid or unsure about standing up to bullies?" Lily's eyes sparkled with determination. "You don't have to fight with your fists. You can fight with your heart. And if you're scared, that's okay. But don't let fear stop you from being the best version of yourself." The interview ended, and Lily stepped off the set, her head held high. It was strange in a way. A few weeks ago she had been just another child trying to get through her day without being picked on. But now she was someone whose words and actions had the power to change the lives of others. Back home, Sarah hugged her tightly. "You were amazing, sweetie. I'm so proud of you." Lily smiled, but her thoughts were already drifting. She hadn't just found strength for herself. She had found a purpose. In the weeks that followed, Lily's story continued to spread. News articles, social media posts, and local events all hailed her as a hero. But for Lily, the most important thing was how she had changed the lives of the people around her. The ripple effect of her bravery had touched not just the children in her community, but others who felt like they, too, could stand tall. It wasn't just about fighting bullies anymore. It was about creating a world where kindness, courage, and strength were valued more than fear, hate, and bullying. It was about teaching everyone that they had the power to make a difference, no matter how small they felt. One afternoon, as she walked with Sarah to the park again, Lily glanced up at her mom and smiled. "You know, Mom," she said, her voice full of wonder, "I think I'm starting to understand. It's not about being famous or being a hero to everyone. It's about being there for each other. It's about standing up when it's hard and making the world better, one small step at a time." Sarah squeezed her hand. "You've got it, sweetie. You've got it." And as the two of them walked hand in hand into the sunset, Lily knew that her journey wasn't over. It was only just beginning. She had learned that courage wasn't just a one-time thing. It was a daily choice. And with every choice she made, she was helping to build a future where kindness and strength would always prevail. The story of Lily and the bikers might have ended, but the lessons of that day would continue to inspire people everywhere. And who knows? Maybe, just maybe, one day Lily would find herself standing up, not just for herself, but for someone else who needed help. And the cycle of bravery, kindness, and change would continue. What about you? What are you doing today to stand up for what's right? We'd love to hear your stories and thoughts. Share them with us in the comments below. Together we can keep the ripple effect going. The days passed quickly, and life seemed to return to its rhythm. Lily's story had now become part of the local folklore, and people in the community continued to talk about her courage. There were stories of children standing up to bullies at school, people supporting each other more openly, and even small acts of kindness that seemed to have spread everywhere. But even with all the attention and admiration, Lily remained grounded, always focused on helping others in whatever way she could. One sunny afternoon, as Lily and her mom Sarah were walking to the park, something caught their attention. It wasn't the usual humdrum of people talking or playing, but a peculiar sight. A familiar motorcycle was parked near the entrance of the park. It wasn't just any motorcycle. It was one of the bikes from the biker group that had harassed her. Lily froze for a moment, her heart racing. She hadn't seen the bikers since that day, and the sight of their bike brought back memories of the tension and fear she had felt. "Mom," Lily whispered, tugging at Sarah's sleeve. "That's one of their bikes." Sarah looked around, her protective instincts kicking in. "Are you okay, sweetie?" she asked, noticing Lily's sudden discomfort. Lily nodded, but her stomach churned. She couldn't help but feel a little anxious. The idea of facing them again after everything that had happened felt overwhelming. But then, as they neared the bike, something surprising happened. The rider, a tall man with a rough demeanor but a softer look in his eyes, stepped away from his motorcycle and turned toward them. Lily recognized him immediately. He was one of the bikers from that fateful day, the man who had been particularly vocal and aggressive. But now his expression was different, quieter, almost remorseful. Lily froze for a moment, unsure of what to do. Her first instinct was to turn and run, but then she remembered something. She had faced her fears once before, and in that moment she felt something stir inside her, the same bravery she had felt when she stood up to the bullies. "Hi," the biker said, his voice surprisingly calm. "I'm sorry for what happened. I wasn't myself that day." Lily blinked in surprise, unsure of how to respond. "Why?" she finally asked. "Why were you so mean to me?" The biker sighed, a look of regret crossing his face. "I don't have an excuse. I was part of something I didn't fully understand. I was angry and I took it out on you. It wasn't fair to you, and it wasn't right." Lily looked at him for a long moment, her heart racing. But then, instead of feeling anger or fear, she felt something else, a deep understanding. She knew deep down that people made mistakes, and sometimes those mistakes could be forgiven, but only if the person owning up to them was willing to change. "I forgive you," Lily said quietly. The biker looked at her, his eyes widening in disbelief. "You do?" Lily nodded, her voice steady. "Everyone makes mistakes. It's what we do afterward that counts. I think you can be better than that." For a long moment, there was silence between them. The biker's face softened, and he looked away, clearly moved by her words. "Thank you," he said quietly. "You've shown me more about being a good person than anyone ever has." Just then, Sarah stepped forward, her eyes filled with a mixture of surprise and pride. "Lily, are you sure about this?" she asked gently. Lily looked up at her mom and smiled. "Yes, Mom, it's okay." The biker nodded, his face filled with gratitude. "I won't forget what you said," he promised, and with that, he turned and walked back toward his motorcycle. As he drove off, Lily felt a weight lift off her shoulders. For the first time in weeks, she felt a sense of peace, knowing that she had faced her past fear and transformed it into something healing. Sarah, watching from the sidelines, felt a lump form in her throat. Lily was growing up, and in ways she could never have imagined. She wasn't just learning to stand up for herself, she was teaching others to be better, to be kinder. The cycle of change had come full circle. The next day, a surprise awaited Lily and Sarah. It was another knock on the door, and when Sarah opened it, standing in front of her, was not only the biker but also his friends, the rest of the group. They all looked nervous, but there was a sincerity in their eyes that hadn't been there before. "We came to apologize," the biker who had spoken before said, his voice steady. "We didn't understand the impact of what we did, but we want to make it right. We've been trying to change. We're here to ask for your forgiveness." Lily, standing next to her mom, took a deep breath. The moment felt surreal, but it also felt right. She didn't have to forgive them. It was her choice. And she knew that forgiveness wasn't about letting people off the hook for what they had done. It was about giving herself the power to move forward. "I forgive you," she said again, her voice calm but firm. "But I want you to know that change is more than just saying sorry. It's about showing people you've learned from your mistakes." The bikers nodded in agreement. "We understand," one of them said, "and we'll prove it." Over the next few months, the bikers kept their word. They worked to change their behavior, started volunteering for community events, and even organized a local charity ride to help those in need. Their transformation wasn't immediate, but it was real. The same men who had once bullied a young girl now worked alongside the community, doing good in the world. Lily's forgiveness had planted the seed for something bigger than she could have imagined. It was proof that change was possible, that people could turn their lives around, and that sometimes all it took was one brave person to spark that transformation. And as for Lily, she continued to stand up for what was right, always remembering that true courage wasn't just about confronting the enemy, it was about helping others to be better too. What do you think? Is there someone in your life who you could forgive to help them change for the better? Let us know in the comments below. And remember, change starts with us, one small act at a time. Months had passed since that unforgettable encounter with the bikers, and Lily's life had evolved in ways she never could have imagined. The transformation in her community was undeniable. The once loud and threatening presence of the bikers had been replaced by acts of kindness, charity, and self-reflection. But it wasn't just the bikers who had changed. Everyone around Lily had begun to look at the world through a different lens, recognizing the power of forgiveness and the potential for redemption in every person. For Lily, the lessons she had learned along the way had shaped her in ways beyond her years. She had found courage in herself, empathy for others, and a deep understanding that life wasn't always about winning battles. Sometimes it was about helping others find their own strength, just as she had. It was a beautiful Saturday afternoon, when Lily and her mom Sarah were walking to the park, as they often did. The park was full of children playing, parents chatting, and the soft hum of laughter echoing through the air. But today, something felt different. There was a palpable sense of unity. It wasn't just a park. It felt like a small corner of the world where people truly cared for one another. Lily ran ahead to the swings, her small legs kicking up dust as she raced toward her favorite spot. She was laughing, a sound that had become more frequent in her life, and it warmed Sarah's heart to see her daughter so carefree. Sarah watched from a distance, still marveling at how much Lily had changed. This was a child who had once feared even stepping outside because of bullies, and now she was a beacon of light for others. As Lily hopped onto a swing, Sarah noticed someone approaching her. It was the biker who had first apologized to her, the one with the kind eyes. He was no longer in his leather jacket, but dressed casually in jeans and a t-shirt. He walked over to Sarah, a humble look on his face. "Hi there," he said, his voice gentle. "I just wanted to thank you, again, for giving me the chance to make things right. It's changed my life. It's changed all of our lives." Sarah smiled softly. "I'm glad to hear that," she said, feeling a sense of peace wash over her. "But it wasn't just me. Lily is the reason all of this happened. She's the one who showed you all how to be better." The biker nodded, his eyes filled with gratitude. "I know. We all know. She's changed us more than words can express. We've all been working together to be better, to support each other, and to give back to the community." As the biker spoke, other members of his group approached, all wearing the same humble expressions. They had come to apologize again, but it was clear that this time it wasn't just about words. It was about action. "We've been helping out with local charities," another biker said. "We've been volunteering with kids. We even started a mentorship program. It's our way of saying sorry and of showing that we've learned from what we did." Lily, who had been swinging higher and higher, slowed down and glanced over at the group. Her face lit up as she saw the bikers walking over to her. She jumped off the swing, her feet hitting the ground with a soft thud, and ran toward them. "Hey," she called out, a wide smile on her face. "You guys really are helping? That's awesome." The bikers smiled warmly. "Yes, Lily," the first one said. "We've changed, and it's because of you." Lily beamed, feeling a sense of pride and accomplishment. "I'm glad. I'm really glad." Sarah watched the scene unfold in front of her, a sense of awe filling her heart. This was more than just a simple act of forgiveness. It was the beginning of something much bigger, a transformation in the way people thought about each other, about kindness, and about the power of a single person's courage. The bikers, who had once been symbols of fear and aggression, had become symbols of redemption. And Lily, the little girl who had stood up to them, had sparked a movement of change that reached far beyond what she had ever expected. Later that afternoon, the bikers left the park, but not before leaving behind a gift, a donation to the local children's hospital. It was their way of paying forward the kindness they had received, of ensuring that the ripple effect of Lily's bravery would continue for generations to come. As the day came to a close, Lily and Sarah walked home together, hand in hand. The world around them seemed brighter, and Sarah couldn't help but feel a deep sense of gratitude for everything that had unfolded. It had all started with one small act of bravery, and now the impact was immeasurable. "Mom," Lily said, looking up at her with sparkling eyes, "I think we did something really good." Sarah smiled, squeezing her daughter's hand. "You did, sweetie. You did." And in that moment, as they walked down the quiet street toward their home, Lily realized that the world wasn't just a place where people could hurt each other. It was a place where kindness could change everything, where one small person with a big heart could create a ripple that transformed lives. It wasn't just the end of a story, it was the beginning of a new world, one where bravery, forgiveness, and love ruled. What about you? Have you ever had a moment where your act of kindness changed someone's life? We'd love to hear your stories. Share them with us below, and let's keep the ripple effect going, together. Top of form.